Welcome to the December 5th Parks and Recreation Advisory Board meeting. First up on the agenda, we'll go ahead and do the minutes. Is approval of the November PRAB meeting minutes. Everybody read those diligently, like I did. I read them.
I should have waited too.
Motion to accept minutes as written.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to accept the minutes as written. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Next up is approval of the December 1st special meeting minutes. I read those too.
Move to accept those as written. Second.
Got a motion to accept the, and a second to accept the meeting minutes, special meeting minutes as written. All approved say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes. Next up, if nobody minds, we'd like to move up youth baseball presentation from John Long, so that we don't have to sit through all the parkland education.
Jim, these are his handouts.
Okay.
John Long, I am the treasurer, executive vice president of Fayetteville Youth Baseball, and I guess part of our agreement is that we come meet these guys occasionally and talk about our league. But anyway, I'll say talk about our season last year. It was probably one of the most difficult seasons we've had in a long time with all the rain. I think we lost the first season, or the first week of the season at White River, just because of it was really a White River when it comes down to it. But anyway, we had we start our season starts in March for practices, runs through the end of June. We had a couple tournament teams that we put in, all-star teams that traveled, went beyond that. We'll talk about them shortly, but we had 84 teams between our two leagues. We have White River, which is our 13 through 15s, and had 10 teams. And then we had 74 teams at Walker Park, and those are ages 5 through 12. The second page is just kind of our numbers, and you'll see that last year we were down 4% from the previous year, and primarily contributed to our 9-year-olds being so far down. We're really having to work hard, struggling of keeping our numbers up with the competitive ball. It's really, it continues to progress farther down and down, and so in ages. So hopefully we'll be able to get those numbers back up. But one of the great things that we saw was just an increase for 11 to 12s and 13 through 15s, which has declined considerably over the last couple of years. So seeing an increase there was great. That was a key thing. 84 teams, that's down a little bit from the previous year, but overall we felt really good, had a really good year. So we had 2 tournament teams that did extremely well last year, and those were all-star teams. We had a 15-year-old all-star team that went undefeated in the North Arkansas Regionals, undefeated in state, and made it to the semifinals of regionals down in Texas. So they came within 2 games of going to, I guess that would be the Babe Ruth World Series for 15-year-olds. So I'm very proud of those guys. And then we had an 11-year-old team called the Fayetteville 50s, and they actually started as 10-year-olds and took that name from 2 years ago when it was our 50th anniversary. And they went to Conway, played in their state tournament, made it to the finals, came within, I guess, 1 game of winning the state, then went to a World Series in Louisiana and came within 1 game of winning the World Series there. So hopefully they'll continue and to represent us well next year. Talking about tournaments, one of the things that helps us raise money is doing tournaments. And we had this year, or last year I guess, we had a tournament that had 54 teams in it that I would say primarily local teams from around Northwest Arkansas, but quite a few teams that came in from across the state. And that's one of the biggest things that we're trying to get in our tournaments. It's the largest one we've ever done, And then we had one set for May that even had 58 or 59 teams, would have been our largest, but that was a monsoon weekend, so we lost that. But last year, we started working a little bit with A&P and got some things done. And we've never gone to A&P for money, still haven't gone to them for money. But we will eventually to help try to get some money for the park. But we're showing that we can bring in, draw some tournaments in and draw some money in. And, I mean, when you bring in 56 teams, 58 teams, of about 12 players, 13 players, 2 parents, it's a lot of money being raised for the city through tax dollars for food and hotels. So we also host, in June, we host the 10 and 11-year-old AAA tournaments, which brings in about 30 teams, and primarily most of those teams are out of state, or not out of state, but out of town. So, and we will try to host a Babe Ruth tournament this year down at Walker or down at White River, which bring in some additional money for the city. In addition to that, one of the great things that's happened this year is that the City Council, working with Parks and Rec and A&P and ourselves, is that the City Council approved $100,000 for Walker Park to do some renovations, and we're in the middle of that right now. And with that $100,000, we had a fundraiser at the end of the year that raised $13,000. We have another fundraiser next April. It's a golf tournament that we hope will raise $25,000. All that money is going back into Walker Park. And so we have a contract, about a $102,000 contract, and then we're going to do some additional work. And this is our letter that I sent to Byron last week of approval from Fayetteville Youth Baseball, about $34,000 that we're donating back that will go to the city next Tuesday for us giving money out of our funds that we've made to do whatever improvements for Walker Park. What these improvements will be is new dugouts. You can go down there right now and you won't see any dugouts. And we're going to put awnings above, or start putting awnings for protection and screen protection for the fans. And ultimately our goal is to get at least a new concession stand or revitalize the concession stand that we have there, maybe add some stuff. But I think we kind of realized that as Walker Park's been put together, how many years ago?
Since 1967.
Yeah, and the way it's been put together, I guess wires run everywhere. And I think we kind of found that out when we took one of the dugouts out. But anyway, so things are a little more complicated, and I guess what we realized that it's great for the board to say we want to do things, but there's a lot more to it. So, and that kind of really sums up. I don't know what else you guys. It's a new deal for me to do this, but kind of whatever you guys want to ask of us, we'll be glad to share information with you.
When we talked baseball before, I can't even remember some of the questions came up, but I think some of them were financial. So in the future, there might be some. It's great that you're donating toward the field. One of the things I often wonder about, you have these big tournaments and that money comes in, was it enough to cover your costs?
With our donation to the city, we've got and the $13,000 that we raised. So we're actually taking about $20,000 out of our account, out of our operating account.
Right.
So we'll have a profit. Right now we show a profit of about $4,000 for the year, taking that money out.
That's great. I mean, that would have been some of my main questions when we start talking about fixing up the ball fields, and at the same time there's these big tournaments going on. How that money works to some degree. And
well, all the money, what we do, you can take last year. Last year we ran at a deficit. Mm-hmm. This year we ran at a positive. There were some good things. The way with the economy is, 2 years ago we ran real low on our sponsors, and that really hurt us. That's $6,000 out of our pocket. That would take care of the deficit that we ran at last year. This year, with the tournaments that we raised a lot more money with that. Participation numbers, while they weren't as high, we did some changing of our umpires. Instead of using 2 umpires for certain fields, we only used 1. So we looked at cutting some things back to bring us back to a positive. But our goal is, is to, while we may not spend money into the league or into the fields every year, is to have a plan of what we want to do and save for that. And right now, our big push is just these fundraisers, so we can go ahead and move forward and get some things, continue to do some renovations to the field. So, because one of the things that we wanted to do or thought about doing this year was actually resodding the fields, and you guys did it without even telling us. Did it, so it was great. So, but you know, we are coming to, you know, it's one of those things that our vision is to continue to improve that park. We think, you know, Connie's vision is to have the regional park. We're with Connie on that, but you know, baseball, I mean, soccer's gonna be first, we all know it. And baseball's still gonna be X amount of years, and it's hard to go out and try to, you know, hit someone up for millions of dollars right now, where the economy is. So I think we feel the baseball park is still, Walker Park's still gonna be there for another 10 years. And we just gotta do some things, we feel just gotta do some things right now to do it.
I appreciate you coming and having this dialogue with us. And in your mind, are there things that we could do to make sure that we're all on the same page? I know in the past there's been times where it hasn't seemed like we're all on the same page. But
I think we're pretty much there. You know, it's frustrating, I guess, when you see I guess it's not the field. The fields are actually in great shape. It'd be nice sometimes if there was a couple inches of the hard dirt taken out, but you know, but they've been there for a long time, and it's a question of how much money do you put into them when they're going to disappear in X amount of years. But it's frustrating when you go in and you go to these towns, and I mean, Farmington's about to be one of them, but you know, you go to Conway last year and they spent $9 million on a new park. We're getting there, but Walker Park's been there for a long time, and I mean, with the work that we did last year, getting rid of the dugouts, getting rid of the old chain link bleacher stands and things like that, it's going to look a lot better. Still need bathrooms, but you know, we'll get there.
yeah.
So, but I think we're on the same page, more so now than, I mean, that $100,000 is phenomenal. So,
Well, I think, you know, one thing I would like to see just in future presentations is a little bit more details as far as the financials and stuff. Like I said, when we talked about the $100,000 donation for the dugouts, there was a lot of financial questions because we just didn't know. You know, we looked at the rough numbers that were coming in per players, and you have about close to 1,000 players, and y'all are somewhere between $60 and $80 per player that come in. And we were just kind of curious, like for example, you brought up about resodding, and the city had already done it. If we could just kind of have a little bit more transparency as far as, you know, what money that you guys are thinking to go towards what projects, to where we can kind of help meet you halfway there, I think that would be very helpful. That makes sense?
yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions?
Jim, I might just say that on Tuesday night, tomorrow night, December 6th, is when the approval of the contract with Pickett Construction goes to City Council. And then the next meeting, which will be December 20th, is when we're going before City Council to request their approval of taking their $34,000 donation. So that's kind of the schedule before us. But you know, we appreciate these groups, you know, that do a lot of work, and it's, you know, it's great to have their buy-in and them helping us to improve our facilities too, because it takes two of us to do it all together. So, John, we appreciate your hard work, and the board of directors, everybody else too.
Oh, absolutely. I know a tournament's got to be logistically, it's got to be hard.
I've been divorced 5 times. Over that. Phil, Mike, one thing that, on your question is that part of what we can do as a board is that sometimes we have the connections out there where we can get things cheaper than what the city can. And we really work hard on that. And, I mean, like all the dugouts, when they were moved, that was all free. I mean, that was through our board, it was through certain board members, and it was all free. And, you know, so there is certain things that we get. And so, you know, like this Pickett construction bid, I mean, we're still working that. I mean, there was 2 bids. How close were they?
they were,
It's quite a bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of that, is because of our board of working through that of companies within Fayetteville, getting the cost knocked down through one of those bids, so, when it ultimately came down to it, the final, so. Well, I appreciate your time.
Well, thank
And
you.
thanks for
Thank
all
you.
your help.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for the money.
There you go.
We always like that.
hey, Jim, can we get, Mayor Gordon is here
Sure.
this evening, and he, since this was our last meeting, and he wanted to say a few words, and we do have some certificates that he was gonna hand out for those members whose terms, were up, okay? That doesn't mean you, some of you have reapplied, that doesn't mean you're not gonna get reappointed, but just to say thank you.
Well, you know, there's a few things the mayor gets to do that he really enjoys. This happens to be one of them. You know, we have the backbone of our cities are volunteer efforts. And I know that y'all spend a lot of time working on the Parks Advisory Recreation Board, and you take a lot of time out for your personal lives, but I personally want to thank you for all the work that you've done and that some of you will continue to do. So we have a few certificates I'd like to give you all tonight. I know that I have a certificate of appreciation for Brian Bailey tonight, so I want to give it to this Brian. Thank you. And Jim Monarchy has one. Thank you very much. And then I have one for Jennifer Hazelriggs. But I want to thank you all for your work, because it's so important. I know last year that the city of Fayetteville, this year is one of the volunteer cities in the state of Arkansas, and we had over 600,000 hours of volunteer work in this city last year. That is a tremendous effort. Nobody in the state is doing anything like that, and it's due in large part to some of the work that you all do. So thank you all again.
Thank you, thank you.
Appreciate it. Is that Lake Fayetteville, or is that
That's Lake Sequoia.
Lake Sequoia? There's a picture. All right, next up is the Botanical Garden Monthly Report, but Michael's not here, so we don't have anybody to take his place. Okay.
I do know the train is up, as he stated last time, so if y'all haven't seen I haven't been out this year yet, but I will be.
I took my son to it yesterday. It's really neat.
It's needed, yeah.
It's
I know last
neat.
year.
And there's little chicks out in where the chickens are. But there's a lot of trains, and I didn't realize how much trains have changed. They used to be, you know, a little, I don't know what you call them, transformer or something, but now they're high tech. It's neat just to go see the technology that's behind them now. Next up is a trail naming proposer, Mihailovich.
Yeah,
Welcome,
thanks for
Matt.
having me back, yeah. As we discussed last time, there are two trails that we're looking at giving official names to, one being the Oak Ridge Trail, and the other is the trail that's under construction right now over by the Agri Farm. We've been calling it U of A Farm Trail for construction purposes. The proposed name on that was Meadow Valley Trail, named after a Meadow Valley School that used to sit on the site, or actually two sites along there. It was moved. So, you know, we kind of felt like historically that was a nice touch. I'm not sure that, I think we tabled it for a month to see if public comment came in during that time. I did not receive any. I don't know if you guys did. Okay. Yeah.
Our office did not.
So,
And you said it was already on the map, the university part, that they already had there.
the Oak Ridge Trail,
Right,
yeah,
right.
that's what they called it on their master
Right.
plan. It's kind of, yeah, I know they'd be good with it. So, and that's what we just called it all along. It just never was official. So, I think that one's kind of easier than the second one.
I think the way we left it last time, I think, was we liked the trail names. We just wanted to make sure I guess it was mandatory to give it a waiting period. So
That's right, it's part of the policy.
if anybody wants to
What were the trail names again, so I can make a motion?
Oak Ridge Trail
Meadow Valley Trail?
and Meadow Valley Trail.
I would like to move to accept the names as proposed.
There you go.
Yeah, we don't have to remember.
Second that.
We got a motion, a second to accept the trail names as proposed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Next up, we have a parkland dedication.
Yeah, next up.
Allison Junker.
All right, we have the development to review tonight's Park Green Collegiate Village. The engineer on is Crafton Tall and Associates, and Stephen Beam is here. Oh, goodness. With this group, if we have questions for him. This is on Rocher Street, just south of MLK, sort of across from the Fayetteville High School. It's this hatched area here. And so the Southwest Quadrant, they're proposing 153 multifamily homes. The money in lieu would be $104,040, or the parkland dedication requirement would be about 2.5 acres, 2.6 acres. We do have a few parks existing within that half-mile service area, and they are here, Hill Place Parkland, the World Peace Wetland Prairie, and also Solitude Trail. The developer is requesting to dedicate money in lieu, and staff is also recommending accepting money in lieu for this project. Here's the site plan, and Stephen, if you want to add anything to that, they are proposing several common areas and amenities for their residents, and Stephen, you may want to talk about that a little more. But
Yes, it is. The project is targeted at students as a leased by the bed development. And with that, they're wanting to create a certain atmosphere for the students that's a little bit unique from some of the other student housing projects, and to create a lot of sense of place and places where the students to commune together and spend some time and get to know one another and their residents. And so there would be a number of kind of common plazas around the buildings to kind of create a sense of place in those entrances, as well as some just more casual areas with barbecue pits and such on the site. It's within the hillside overlay, and so there's significant preservation requirements as a result. And so within those preservation areas around the slopes, we're talking about soft surface trails just for students to use as well. Excuse me. And such, the development of the site as a whole is fairly challenging because of the topography and because of some of the preservation requirements. But there are, and then also, those of you who may be familiar with it, you can see this sort of bare spot in the upper left-hand corner of that picture in the aerial photo. There's a transmission line that runs through there. But we're trying to make use of the top of the hill there that's already had canopy removed, and it's kind of where we're trying to condense the development. So it has as minimal an impact as possible, but yet meeting ordinances. And with that, with the proximity of existing parks and then the nature of the project, we were requesting the proposal. It is all the way to, if you take the road all the way up to the top, and then there's kind of a little dirt road that you can follow on in. It's that property there.
So the hillside overlay set aside as the steep side towards Ridgeback Road, is that what I'm viewing?
For the most part, the whole site is within the hillside. There's a little portion at the top of the hill that's not included, but a large chunk of what is within the hillside overlay is still not canopied, because the canopy had been removed long before the hillside ordinances were adopted. And so we're seeking to preserve those areas that still do have canopy, and trying to condense our development into the other areas.
So this area right in here,
That would all be-
it's not trees?
It is existing trees.
Oh, it is
Yes,
trees,
Yes,
okay.
and those would be the preserved areas.
Stephen, I had a question on that one. Is that Paris Street that comes down to MLK?
It is Paris, the one that is running.
It lines up with Garland, I guess it's.
It says Garland, but
Yes, it is Paris right now, and one of the things that we'll do, we've talked to planning staff, and they would support the change, renaming that to Garland Avenue.
And it looks like some improvements to that street?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
The pedestrian,
Yes, with
Okay.
the sidewalk access, because,
Yeah. because the trail will be, I don't know if you know, on the master plan, the Zoligi Trail will be down.
Okay.
Along, behind those apartments, or not. commercial
Okay, running
strip.
along the creek?
Not really, there's an old rail bed. that
Okay,
through there.
okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, no, I was not aware of that.
So we're gonna really kind of make that connection nice for.
Didn't that show that other, wasn't there
It's
another
not shown
image
on
that showed
that
yeah.
Well,
you
that's
can-
the
Oh,
rest.
okay,
That's
yeah.
the-
that is.
yeah.
That lighter line there in that curve
Right.
is shown, that's where the old rail bed is, and we plan to use that, we have easements already on some of it, so.
Oh, okay, okay. And then run on the north side of the Indian Trail?
That's correct.
Road?
Yeah, and if you'll notice, Chick-fil-A has already built the trail behind them, so there's pieces.
Okay.
We've gotten some easements through there, and that's gonna be a pretty high priority trail.
Yeah.
So we try to get the pieces put together on it, so. Along that Paris Street would be real nice to have some good pedestrian cycle connection for this development to get to that.
Excellent.
And on across to go north too, because there's a signalized crossing there. with
Yep, the signal's there,
crosswalks.
and the bus stop is just, the U of A southernmost Razorback Transit stop is there in lot 56, kind of on its eastern side, and so it was important for us to provide that pedestrian connection. That's great news.
It's great
for
to
that
see
trail.
that.
Yeah.
Maybe an added bonus.
Any other questions?
Aubrey Shepherd. This is part of the Town Ranch neighborhood, which is on your right, where the, to the east of the railroad, which has incredible erosion and water runoff problems already, and water comes off that hill there. I, as neighborhood representative, I would have expected to know about this, but I didn't. All I did know about it is that for this year, for the first time in several years, they mowed down all the native prairie plants on top of that hill. It's a magnificent place. There should be some of that preserved as Prairie Park. It's part of the what is it? How do we say it? Enduring green network of the city. It's an incredible wildlife area. The tame creatures have been run out of there since, I believe, summer a year ago. The campus police were chasing out the homeless people who were now driven into somebody else's yard. And I didn't even know who this, I've been told recently that it belongs to the university, is that correct? Or
The property,
whose property is it?
this property is currently owned by a bank.
Okay,
It had been foreclosed on.
okay, well, it's, I was told, in fact, the university police ran the homeless people out of there last summer.
Are you talking about in the yellow hatched area?
That whole mountain, yes.
Okay.
But that open area up there is a spectacular wildlife area. And of course, all the woods are, but it's really special. And 2 years ago, I took the state botanist for the Natural Heritage Commission up there, and he was just amazed. He asked me about a dry site. It wasn't wetland, which he does all kinds of, he does the documentation of where the best native plants are in the state and unusual. And he found some up there in the dead of winter because he didn't identify them. I have photos of many of them from past years. But this year I didn't get to make any up there because they mowed it early during the growing season. And again, I didn't know why. I thought it was part of this, the reason the campus police had said some of those people may be growing marijuana up there. Those nasty homeless people, and they just need to get out of there. Well, so bank does own it. I suspected that might be the case, but there haven't been any signs on it. But anyway, part of that needs to be preserved. The woods certainly, and the prairie too, and it would be nice if they set aside some places they don't. Well, on that kind of hillside, down below there, immediately toward the left or right-hand corner, you see the natural area marking on the World Peace Wetland Prairie, and then between that red trail, which I call the Pinnacle Prairie Trail, and World Peace Wetland Prairie, that land set aside several years ago by Pinnacle Food Company owns it, and they quit mowing it to make it an adjunct to World Peace Wetland Prairie. That was in 2005. So in the part outside to the left has been mowed once this year. And we have an agreement with Pinnacle Foods. The mayor gave them an award for not mowing it any more than they did the last few years. And so part of the year, at least until July 20th this year, it was not mowed, and I have spectacular native plant flower photos from that. But as you can see, that's one piece of land that's cut apart by the railroad, and it would be wonderful if at least part of this, if it's going to be developed this way, it would be a piece of nature park up there that has what soil's left there. This hilltops like this is road, so there is red dirt underneath, but it has a shallow layer of black dirt on top from which the native plants grow. Down below there on Pinnacle and down at World Peace Wetland Prairie, it's deeper and deeper black dirt. And the roots of the native plants go very deep there. But up there, there's about 6 species of milkweed on that in the hill block up there in the cleared areas. And in fact, I just used some Beatrice pictures on my short takes for Cat, not knowing about this. Beatrice pictures made up there, and they're spectacular. So setting it, putting some money into another piece of parkland would be nice, but that place is an example of a dry, high plains prairie site with the best of the natural plants already there. So it wouldn't require restoration out there so much as just setting aside some protected areas in that cleared area. So, and I'm sorry I didn't know about it. Give you a prepared statement or something. I sometimes come by the meeting after I do my short takes on Monday nights once a month, and well, I do them every week, but see what you guys have on your plate. And I was sort of shocked to see that tonight. Haven't seen any developer signs. I haven't seen any, haven't got a notification. I assume the neighborhood,
It
what
hasn't
few
gone through
neighbors
the planning
didn't
process
go
yet.
through the, right.
Right.
So those will be coming.
The way the process goes, Aubrey, it comes to the Parks Board first,
Yeah.
and they look at it in looking at parkland, if parkland is needed or not. We have a criteria, that we utilize.
Right.
And then it will go to planning, and then all the notifications will go out to the adjoining neighbors and all, so. And
Well, I hope you consider this concern because, we've now got a stream side ordinance, which doesn't help on that particular thing because it's a few hundred yards away from the actual streams that run up there. But it does send muddy water right now down to the 11th Street Bridge on the town range. clearing that hillside where this corner comes down and does that little funny thing by the railroad. They cleared some of that a few years ago. I've got aerial photos online that show what it was just before they cleared the land over here. They did some of that clearing in 2004 or 5. And, but, you know, nothing should be built on that steep hillside. I mean, it slides. You've got a railroad there. If the erosion increases because of the taking timber off the hillside and building, concreting and so forth, it actually puts the railroad bed at risk. It's already been at risk from the hill place cleared the land up to the railroad. And they've had to do several attempts to try to stop the erosion. They get water in their apartments comes on a certain part of that. But anyway, this is a very delicate part of the city, and it's part of the continuing or enduring green network. It's all on the plan for protecting wildlife habitat in the city, and it's certainly a special site that should be something people visit to enjoy, and it should not all be turned into more apartment buildings and parking lots. So just be merciful if you can in looking at this. Thank you. I'd be happy to hear.
If I may get your phone number afterwards, then I'd like to discuss the project with you a little bit more.
I haven't seen this site. I'm not 100% sure I have all the. But it looks to me like you're obviously going to leave the.
It's lit, yeah.
You're going to leave the steepest part natural. Maybe there would be room to. It sounds like it would be little or no maintenance. Might be something
That's
easy.
correct. If I had been thinking, I would have sent just a raw aerial photograph.
It doesn't look like you're removing it. It's very, very few.
There are a few trees. There's the area where the slight L-shaped building, that's the ridge line that's running kind of from the what will be the northeast corner, kind of lower right on that the orientation of the drawing, to the southwest through that kind of line of building. We're running right parallel to the transmission line.
Right.
That is the hilltop.
And
that is bare right now. We begin on the, it might be easier if I just.
that transmission line goes right along over the parking and stuff, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is it showing the posts?
Yes, those dark
Or poles,
dots are
utility
the
posts?
posts here, come through. And we begin to get into the tree line just ever so slightly in this corner. But for the most part, this is all open. And there is a sort of little bench, or not a bench, but a little steeper portion of the slope that runs right through here. That those trees, we haven't got to the point of doing a full-blown tree survey yet, but a lot of those trees were damaged in the last bad ice storm that we had. And so when we get in, we'll have a better idea of their health condition. But as we come through here, there is a little bit of trees that we may be removing. And then this area down in here is open, more so, and then there's just kind of a little row of more scrubby trees. This right up against the railroad. This is a little bit heavier wooded. There's actually some canopy that falls below the transmission line right in this area here. But for the most part, the rest of the site is open and being preserved. The site requires a 30% because of the hillside tree canopy preservation. As the site is probably about 35% canopied right now, and we're going to end with the 30% that we have.
Well, if you could, find some of that milkweed that I believe you were talking about, that's one of the monarch's main sources of food for the area. We like our butterflies, so if you could, keep an eye on that area and try and preserve as much of that as you can. That would be very nice.
How is this kind of development reviewed within the Parks Department? I don't suppose it is. Who does look at this for potential protected species and so forth? Is that part of your checklist, Allison or Connie, when you're going through deciding whether something should be park or not, or does it not enter into parks?
It doesn't enter as much. I mean, we always look at existing natural features and what is meeting the needs as set out by the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So our criteria is more heavily weighted on that, on the master plan and what it calls for. We don't have anyone in particular in the city that overlooks wildlife and flora and fauna.
One of the things that we've used on other projects, most often it's when we're working with the Corps of Engineers in the wetland area, but the same would apply in upland situations like this as well, is to take the topsoil and basically harvest the topsoil and then reuse the native topsoil on that site in the landscaped areas, or the areas that we may not, on this particular project, we haven't gotten to those level of discussions, but the owner has mentioned going more for a natural scape as opposed to manicured landscape. And we could reuse the native topsoils on the site, and then those native seed beds of these particular species of plants and things will then just naturally germinate and grow in those landscape beds. And that's, while that may not be as good as preservation, obviously, it at least allows those species to perpetuate.
I'm sorry, who owns the land, I guess, west of it?
To the west is, well, I believe the city owns the property basically from here. I think it's at this corner.
There's 10 acres that we own.
Okay.
Is there more than 10 acres? I think it's just right at 10. That is actually the land, when we talk about the Lewis soccer field, when we did that contract with the University of Arkansas, they let us lease the fields at Lewis, and the city let them allow the University of Arkansas to lease that 10-acre property. Okay, and there was also providing fire services to Agri Park was also included in that contract, which goes until 2018.
And this property is owned here by
Prairie.
yeah. And then I'm not sure if they own around this side or not. I can't recall.
But that uphill part, it looks like you're really not going to disturb that anyway, so you might be able to incorporate some kind of protection along with that. But this is really a separate issue, isn't it, then, from accepting the money or
Yes.
not? That's a separate decision and wouldn't be attached at all, I would think.
Can you tell me again the amenities we have within the half-mile radius?
We have the Hill Place Parkland, oops, I think this one's better. And the World Peace Wetland Prairie, which are here, and also the Solid E Trail. They're all within the half-mile.
And it doesn't, it may not count, but Fayetteville High School also is in that circle. I don't know if you can still go, I used to go to the track and stuff and run all the time. I think you still can. I don't know about the university, but the high school, you can still just trail.
What you see in red is paved. Not yet. We're gonna hopefully be there soon. Brian's asking about how much of the trail's paved, just the red part there, and then it'll extend to the east with some future trail projects, and then also back west.
So eventually we'll be connected to that parkland, via trail.
Yes, to that parkland and over to Walker Park as well. And just go Frisco Trail, Skull Creek Trail, all of that, you know.
Right, so we had some on the trail update we got.
Yes.
Yeah, for the Frisco Trail extension side.
Yeah.
Okay. That's in design, we've been promised funding for it and everything, so it's definitely moving forward.
Connie, is there any ideas on that, you said that property, that 10 acres that we're leasing to the university, is there any plans? I assume that when Lewis lease goes up, that this is gonna revert back to the city as well?
Yes.
Is there any plans for that property?
Not that I know of at this point. I've not heard of any. I know there's, at one time, there were some developments that were interested in purchasing that piece of property, but it never did come to pass, so.
No
It's pretty
thoughts
heavily
about,
treated.
no thought about making it a park or anything along those lines, or, don't know?
We've never discussed that, so it could be. You know, it's pretty prime real estate for the city, so I don't know for what purposes they purchased that piece of property. If it was for water and sewer, it will be in an enterprise fund in which, I mean, water and sewer is pretty much in control of. I don't know for what purposes they did purchase that property.
So from a park standpoint, the land that's being left untouched because of the overlay district and the tree preservation issues, there's really not a whole lot of that land that would be usable for us, so money in lieu would be the right thing to do on this. From a parks perspective, there's a lot of other things that have to transpire.
You know, there are a lot of beautiful natural areas in our city, and boy, if we choose every one of them, there's no way we could ever maintain them nor, you know, really utilize them to their fullest. So it's tough. There's some gorgeous sites that go to development, and I don't know how we can protect those. But I don't think parks is probably an avenue on this one, particularly when we have such a huge, nice, beautiful natural area that we are already preserving there, which I'm really proud of, so.
I think given the criteria that we have to go by, that money in lieu is probably the right thing to do here. I think that the area is adequately served right now, so that's the way I'm inclined to make a motion.
And I'm always thankful when the developers come in and you know, they've got a swimming pool, you know, they're providing some recreation there too for their people, so we always.
The soft trails.
The soft trails system, yeah.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we accept money in lieu for the development.
Got a motion and a second to accept money in lieu. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Up next, we have another parkland dedication.
All right, the second development is the Cambridge, and the engineer on this is Jordan and Associates, and Justin is here representing them. The owner is Mark Lindley. It's located in the northeast corner of MLK and Beechwood. It's the old Love Box site, if you're familiar with that. It's in the southwest quadrant. And they are proposing 228 multifamily units. The land dedication requirement would be about 3.88 acres, and the money in lieu would be $155,040. This is situated, we don't have parks within a half mile. There are several that are in the area, and again, those are Hill Place, World Peace, Wetland Prairie, Solid View Trail, and Town Ridge Creek Trail. And this one, the developer is proposing to dedicate money in lieu, as well as dedicate a trail corridor and construct the trail. And staff is recommending the same, the developer's request. And Justin is here. You can go over some of the amenities in the proposed development. And Matt too might chime in on the trail connection.
You want to go first, or you want me to go?
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you for your time this evening. And, you know, this is a unique piece of property from an engineering standpoint because currently it's all concrete and gravel. There's no trees on it, so it's actually an opportunity to create something post-development that has, you know, more pervious area than pre. So we like the site, the location of the site, and like I mentioned, there's no trees, and, you know, working with the Parks Department, they're excited to incorporate the trail into this development, and I think it'll be an asset for this property for the students. And once the trail gets all the way connected to the U of A. So we're excited and be glad to answer any questions you guys have.
I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. The way it's worded, the easement and the trail you're gonna build, they're the same, right? I mean, you're not gonna build a trail and give a separate easement of 25 feet somewhere else.
Right, yes, sir, sure, yes.
And do we have any ballpark figure for how much it costs to build a trail by foot or by quarter mile or mile or anything?
Yeah, it ranges quite a bit depending on what amenities are associated, bridges and things can really accelerate the cost. This is a pretty basic trail. We did an estimate even on it, which I believe was, gosh, you know, sometimes it's $50 to $75 a linear foot.
I can't remember the estimate on this.
I want to say maybe it was around 60,000.
Well, thank you. That's a pretty good
contribution.
Yeah, that's a nice
What's out there?
added value to
There's
that.
currently nothing out there but the old rail line up in the right corner where that trail, where it kind of, I don't know if you can see it kind of curving up and meeting Beechwood Street. That the old rail corridor is still there from that point over to Razorback Road.
So it does go right through the property.
Yes, right through the property. And it's great that they're willing to build a trail, because really, when you have a development like this with the trail so integral, the time to build the trail is with the development, not to try to have our crew come back in later and build that and tear up all their landscaping and deal with all the students.
Yeah.
So
And this is gonna hook into your planned trails?
yeah, it's that same Zolligy Trail, which stands for Cherokee Trail. I know it's kind of a weird name, but I always like throw that in there. It's actually part of the Trail of Tears route. So Cherokee Trail, in their native language, Zolligy. But yeah, it's part of that same trail as we saw the last project, and we'll connect over to meet up with Frisco Trail. And as we get more pieces like this, that accelerates the priority of the trail, so we're gonna try to get that one going soon.
What are the, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
You're saying, what are the easements missing in that link?
Between Beechwood and Razorback, we don't have any easements. We have Chick-fil-A, we have Sonic, we need Arby's. And then the long strip mall, we've been working with them for a while, but we need them. From Paris over to the east, we have that, it was part of rail line. And then, yeah, like where Subway is and stuff, yeah. So, I mean, there's pieces of it, but we'll work, and most people kind of know that rail line's for that future trail. So, and anytime a development comes through, we'll be watching it.
But basically, this property, I mean, I'm kind of looking at a satellite right now, it's basically just an old grown over gravel lot, is what it looks like. There's no real green space that's there at this time at all.
This is an industrial brownfield. You remember, I'm sure, Stephen does, and Bill, when this was, there were piles of oak there being made into pallets. It was a pallet company for years. Yeah, it's a mess.
So what we're looking at is getting, there's something I started looking at when I look at these projects. If you look at the parkland dedication requirement, it's almost a fourth of this land. And you really couldn't even have the project if you said, well, we're gonna take the land. The project wouldn't even work, so. And then we're really gonna get, in return for that, 200,000 plus.
And there's quite a bit of
Counting the trail that they're gonna build and the easement and the money in lieu.
the land that's just south of that, looks like it's all green. It's right next to the parking lot. I guess that's. Do we have any idea who owns that property? Do you know?
There's a piece in
The
between.
south?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the company. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. Their office is there, and they have probably maybe 10 acres or 5 to 10 acres of green. field. And I don't know what, I've heard at one time they were talking about expanding and utilizing that, but I haven't heard anything more than that.
I don't want to cut off any discussion if anybody had any more questions, but again, I think this is a case that I think money in lieu is the
I
right
agree.
thing to do here. So again, I'd like to make a motion that we accept money in lieu for this project.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to accept money in lieu. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Motion passes.
Thank you, and thanks for the invitation to Christmas party. Good timing, huh?
Grab a cookie on the way out.
I'm good, thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you all for working.
Merry Christmas, by the way.
All right, next up, another parkland dedication. Corey Trace.
All right, this is, I guess, a bit of a continuation of the meeting that we had last week on Trace Commons. Tim is here again tonight to talk about the project. Just as a reminder, they are proposing 114 single-family units. The land dedication is 2.74 acres and is the purple T-shaped hatched area on the map. Or the money in lieu requirement would be 109,440 acres.
Did everybody have fun thinking about this one?
Let's open it up here. That's what I was thinking of. We've had the opportunity to get together and visit, and you guys walk the site and are intimately familiar with it now. Some of you guys have seen it come through twice. So obviously I'll answer any questions that we might have or can maybe negotiate on the best way to handle this and brainstorm. It is a unique piece, and a unique situation, so.
And something I think that's kind of unfortunate that's happened in the past week, then we have a park in that area that was burned down.
The other side.
On the other side.
On the
south
southwest side.
But it is
Of
in
the
the same.
Of the city.
Yeah, the northwest corner.
I'm sorry, the
Oh.
north, yeah.
Oh, it's not in this area, no?
No.
Oh, I misunderstood you.
Red Oak Park,
Okay.
which is off of, between Weddington and.
Throw out my comment then, never mind.
No, fire during construction too.
That was
Yes.
Bryce Davis.
Yeah, that's Bryce. Which was
Different
same
park.
park.
Those are close by,
Well,
though.
Connie, you were smart. Thank you for suggesting telling that while we were out in the field, because I sure thought about it a lot. When I was out there, I remember commenting that I didn't think it could ever be a park after looking at Bayari and thinking about maybe Sweetbriar. I think maybe Lashley, they're really not that big. I went back out there yesterday, and I guess, if you wanted to make a little park there, you could. There is room. If that's what we want to do. Obviously, we said we're going to leave it as a natural area, but but what I started looking at these figures and going back and just playing with some ratios and some stuff that I never looked at before. I guess because I assume when we take money in lieu, we think I've always thought that it was kind of equal value, equal value land versus money. So when you look like at Columbia, and we did Canada, the land dedication for that was larger than the project because it's high density. And I didn't look I tried to look at how we do the formulas, but that's really not the point. What I started looking at is like tonight we had these projects coming in, and they all come around $40,000 an acre. But when you have 3 acres on MLK, that's a lot different than having those 3 acres out by Lake Sequoia. And so when I went out there and looked at that land yesterday, I thought, well, to myself, if you were going to offer me the 100 and whatever it is, 109, or versus those 2.74 acres, I would take the money. It changed my mind, because I don't see the value in that land unless we want that land for a park and are dedicated to wanting that land in that neighborhood. And then I don't know what the lots are going to be worth, but I even thought, gosh, if we really wanted to have a little park in there, you could almost take the money in lieu and buy a few of the lots wherever we wanted. I don't know if it's fair to ask what a lot would go for. But
That's a tough question.
yeah, I mean, no, they're different sizes, but, and I don't even know if that would be option or if that would even be legal, but with that amount of money, we could, you know, we could strategically place a park anywhere we wanted where it's low traffic. And so I started thinking that the land, you know, wasn't worth that amount. I'd rather have the money than the land, simply because of the value of the land. And that is, I did go back out there and see if that is a dead end. So, right, it doesn't really affect the parkland dedication land because that's in the tree preservation area, but that is stagnant water that's not gonna go out. And I went out last night purposely because it had rained and I wanted to see what that looked like. There's really not very much runoff. So there's not a lot, it's not a big bunch of water shooting through there. There is a little bit of water, and there's a little bit of water going over where the pipeline is. So there's a little bit of drainage in there, so you still kind of have a ditch factor on the parkland part. I don't know, so I started looking at the ratio of the park. Obviously, sometimes we don't even go look at the sites because I guess it's not even a possibility. And sometimes it's a major portion of it. But then, I guess, I don't know how unusual this is being farther out, and the formula is the same, I suppose, for how much acreage you get per the unit. But the value of the land might be quite different in town versus out like that. So I see a value discrepancy here between the value of the land and the obvious value of the dollars.
Well, how our formula is arrived at is it takes, we go by our national parks standard that says that we need 10 acres per 1,000 people, okay? And then they look at, and it's an impact fee, so it's upon how many single-family homes or multi-family homes. And then there's a ratio that we take of how many people live per single-family homes, which is, I think, is it 2.33, 2.4. So that's how we arrive at our formula, more or less at our formula. So it's based upon the density, not so much on the acreage of the place.
Right.
You know, we take that formula and you either go for money or
Right.
to land in lieu of.
But when you go, if you remember when we were walking on that property, you know, the question I was asking myself is, would I pay $39,000 an acre for that property? And the answer was, no, I would not.
And that's more or less what the city is paying for.
Right. If we want to park in that area, you know, we can certainly buy land that would hold the park for that amount of money. But I'm still willing to be talked in, you know, if we need that property, that makes it more valuable to us.
Or if there are, you know, if you see, or if you guys see a better location for the park within that, you know, we've got some defined parameters with our streets already in place, obviously, but, you know, instead of what you mentioned, Jim,
Right.
paying you and then you buying back lots, I mean, I know
Right.
that's just an example, but I mean,
Right.
we're up for discussion as far as, well, I think, from your knowledge, you know, a park would be better suited here or here. You know, that's an option as well. That particular piece was selected because of some of the natural features and the trees and the, you know, that standpoint. And if you just put a park in the middle, it doesn't quite have the same characteristics, but it might be more centrally located, more accessible, or more easily developed into a park, if that's what we're going for. But I think at the time, it was more green space and tree preservation. Because, as I mentioned earlier, I think there were no trees other than blueberry bushes and perimeter trees on this particular site.
Yeah, the discrepancy I see has nothing to do with the development, because, I mean, you don't draw up those ordinances, obviously, but what I just see is, you know, if we had $110,000, what could we do with it as far as purchasing land for a park in that somewhere in that area?
Because it is dedicated for that zone, correct? Yes, to serve within a half mile of that subdivision.
So I guess the question I would be asking myself and everybody else is, do we want that piece of property, or $110,000 worth, or $109,000 for another piece of property in that area that could be flatter and more, maybe a better piece of property for a park?
Take it a step, I'm sorry.
Yeah, or work within this subdivision to get a different piece of. The only reason I mentioned taking the money in lieu of buying lots is because that may be the only legal way, if that's legal, because we might end up with less land and may not be meeting the requirements of the land dedication, but we'd have more valuable land, more usable land. Because that ditch is certainly a factor in there as far as usability.
Parkland dedication funds can be used for development or the purchase of property. That is within that language. And parkland can be, whatever we do with the parkland, it will have to go before city council if we are to purchase outright property.
Only in the zone of the city though, correct? In that quadrant?
Yes.
Okay.
If we utilize parkland dedication funds.
Again, there's some detachment there, because if we just, if we have the money in lieu, then all options are open. If we still go back to this development and purchase land, I guess that would be fine.
Land, or it can go towards development of another park that's in that area.
In that area.
We have 3 years to spend the money within the year that it's received, so we would get it at the end of probably 2012, so we would have till 2015 to utilize the funds if we did not take the land dedication.
Well, the concerns that I have as far as this piece of property is one, it's kind of tucked in behind a lot of residential areas. And for parkland, I would prefer that, as far as a park goes, to be out into the open where, you can look out your front drive or your front window and see the park and make sure that your kids are okay, as opposed to having to walk around a corner. I mean, there could be fence lines. I think there is fence on those back properties there, and there could be fence lines all around there. And I don't know if making a secluded park is really a good park. I like to think of parks being more open and seen widely as safer parks. One of the things that we discussed is, if this was the beginning of a trail that caught into the trail going to Lake Sequoia, I could really get behind that aspect of it as far as doing something along those lines. As a trail running through it, I think it's very doable. But as far as, a secluded park, that you're gonna try and make a safe environment for kids, I really don't like the location, how it's nestled in behind all these other houses and things. I don't know if you guys would look any more about how far away from the trail going to Lake Sequoia. You said it was running up north.
It's on quite a bit to the north, isn't it?
Yeah.
The trail.
Well, it's along the White River.
Right.
Is where the master plan
So
shows. So you can see this curve.
It goes through like Bayari.
Yeah,
And
there in that map on the left corner, and see that curved line is the actual river.
Yeah.
So we have a plan to use the river corridor for the trail.
We'd have to get down to the river still, huh?
Yeah.
Tim,
It's a little bit challenging.
the quarry that it shows on here, where the neighbor was concerned.
Which I met with. For
Is he?
a good
He's
hour,
got.
so
But that's.
it was fine. It's a good movie.
That cul-de-sac right there, is that right by his house?
His house is, well, he owns that property, but his house is probably about where that little, is it the mouse that's sitting right there? So his house is probably
Oh, okay.
sitting right in about here, but he is mowing and maintaining all of this,
Okay.
even part of the curve on the subdivision right through there. And that was
Okay, that's why I was a
actually-
little confused whether that was part of the subdivision or his property.
That's all his property right through there. And that was actually,
I mean, if you look at
Part
this
of our
little,
discussion
if you look
was-
at this little nook right here between the quarry and that cul-de-sac, I don't know, we might be able to.
Yeah, those 3 lots down there.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wasn't there at this meeting, so I mean, you guys, the staff is saying to take the land with the mitigation. Is it just for the purpose of getting a park out in that area? Or, I mean, according to the master plan, is that decision one, we need a park within a half mile?
Correct.
And I obviously I missed this, a park can be either playground and like usable, like,
natural.
or just a natural space, or it could be a combination, but here it sounds like there's not much terrain that allows for park space, or traditional playground space and things like that, so we're just talking a grassy area that Byron and his guys would upkeep, and it'd probably be used by the neighborhood because of its kind of its hidden location or off the beaten path.
Yeah. I mean, and that is, I think Philip brought up a good example, you know, of that being back behind. You know, it does attach to the tree preservation area, which we really liked. You know, that just enhances and makes our green space larger when our parkland can be beside the tree preservation area. So that was a positive note.
Are there other parks similar to this proposal in the city where it's kind of hidden away like that, but it's really utilized by the people, or?
We have some similar situations, but not where it's heavily utilized. Brookbury, all behind those homes, there's the creek that runs back there. And in fact, we have trampolines and one hot tub and, you know, several things back there that have kind of encroached upon our parkland a little bit.
I didn't know we had a hot tub.
There's a bench you have to crawl over, but I'll be happy to share earlier time. What else do we have? There's Wildwood, you know, which is over just east of Bryce Davis Park. We have a whole area that's behind. And it's very hard to really service those people, to be honest. It's more of a green space protection for the, you know, the people that abut up to that than it is for an enjoyment, I think, from the neighborhood.
I guess maybe that's one of my questions. Is it more of a pat on the back to say, good job, we got a park within a half mile of these people, or will it hinder the development if we say, well, this money is the best option because this might be an unsafe park or an unusable green space? Or, I know I'm really late in the discussion asking these questions, but.
It's a good question. I think some of that Tim might want to answer.
I would love to answer the hindering the development part. I mean, it's, you know, we've got, for example, this I'm looking at, we've got all the engineering. I'm just representing the bank. This is a bank-owned piece of property. I'm representing the bank as finishing this, first and foremost, finishing the development, and then secondly, an exit strategy on the lots. Okay, and they've got you know, you don't want to bring economics into the discussion too much, but you have to. They've got a lot of money invested in this. They're upside down in it, and we've got very defined parameters in place, as I mentioned, with the streets, because the streets and most of the infrastructure is already in place. I mean, this is, from my research and visiting with all the different city folks involved and the engineers, and it's 85 to 90, if not even 92% finished as it sits, and this was originally accepted. This parkland was originally accepted when they first brought it through in 2004, 2005. So there is a sizable amount of investment necessary just to finish the development as it is, aside from $109,000, you know, for, you know, payment to the parks if we need to go that route. You know, there's a lot of other lots out there in this area, and I'm very much in favor of doing something as far as a park or a community space, whether it be. The unfortunate thing is there was a lot of discussion around this quarry, and it's the most unique natural feature on the site, and I would love, you know, we have plans to put a trail around this and some picnic tables and clean it up and really make it an attraction to this subdivision. And so that's my plans for this particular area, and I would love to see, you know, some sort of other park feature developed on the property, whether it's just green space or whether it's green space with a trail meandering through it or something. I guess it's my argument, or my points are twofold. Really, it's a tough check to write because there's so much already invested in this development. And the second thing is, from a development standpoint, I want to see park areas and green space and buffer zones and trails through it, you know. And that's why I said to Jim, I'd be open to, you know, we've got parameters with these streets in place, but we don't have to necessarily limit ourselves to this area. You know, if we like this because it's got the mature trees, it's a natural area. It's got the tree canopy. It also helps with the tree preservation, you know, and that sort of thing. But you know, you guys know the ordinances a lot better than I do. If there's something we can do around or in conjunction with my plans for the quarry, if there's a couple lots in that area or something we can do there, you know, that helps out. I am all for that, because I'm all for seeing, I've got to do something to differentiate our development from all of the other developments around there. And it's, you know, I think parks, trees, wildlife, natural features, I'm kind of biased towards that, but I think that goes a long way in differentiating us from all the neighbors and making it a very desirable place to live.
You know, one thing that we see when we're out there, Brian, was there's a lot of open, raw land that's around this piece of property, except to the south, you know, is the highway. But on to the west and north and east of that piece of property, there's open, raw property there that someday might be some more homes that would be coming into it. It is 114 units, so it is a lot of people to serve. You know, that's a lot of family, a lot of kids. So, to be honest, when we first worked with this development, and I appreciate working with Tim's open mind on it and stuff, you know, they were pretty much locked into that area right there. So, this might be something that we could, I don't know if you're underneath something, you know, to explore a little bit more, or not.
Well, again, I went out there and walked that last night. The main feature on this property is a ditch and stagnant water at the end. Now, the stagnant water is not on the parkland. It's in that tree preservation area, but it's not natural. It's, you know, it can't be natural because it doesn't follow the contours of land. It's just a dead end. It's a little creeklet that dead ends. But and I don't know the exact. Tim might be able to tell you better. Where that little orange thing is there's a pipe that goes under the land we're talking about. See that little orange line? And then it empties out right there, and it veers a little bit toward the left, and then kind of hooks around to the right and dead ends. So between this purple strip right here, you know, I would say it's about 60 feet wide. I stepped it off. That's usable. You got about 60 feet. So part of it's either in the ditch bottom or going down. It's a pretty, I mean, it's a big ditch. It's not like a little roadside ditch. It's probably, how wide? 60 feet wide. I like ditches, and I even like stagnant water, but I looked at it again last night, and I was thinking, you know, do you want your kids back there and all that? And you know, right now, I mean, I like the way we're talking. I certainly am not against, you know, doing something, looking, I mean, if I had my choice right now, I would take that money and try to develop it, you know, somewhere where there's low traffic, where the staff thought would be a more usable spot, or in that general area. If we want to, you know, help this project, we could certainly keep it within the property. But
you know, one thing we have looked at too many times, and in this instance, we do not know, but many times adjoining property, we know there's going to be a development coming through real soon, so we'll try to take some land in the corner of that. And we did that with the linear park of Red Oak, actually. We adjoined 3 different neighborhoods together in order to get one long linear park. So.
I understand that, and when, you know, Jim, I have a concern about maybe, you know, the idea of buying 2 lots or buying 3 lots in that subdivision. It seems then you have a city park that now we're maintaining. Remember, this is wild property that, even though it's not the most desirable property, it's not costing the city anything. But if you take 2 lots and then you have a park to maintain with park structures, and did just that neighborhood's park, so we just did them an enormous favor.
Do we know, Tim, you'd mentioned that the developer had purchased this parcel in order to deed it back to the city as part of the requirement. Do we know what they paid for this piece of property?
I can find that out. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
No, it is, I do know it was a separate purchase, and the reason that I know that is because I needed to go back to the bank and find out before we took these discussions much further. I wanted to make sure that they actually knew about it and foreclosed on this particular piece
Had
of
that one
property
too.
right, as well.
Yeah.
And they did, but I talked to the guy that knew a lot of the history on it. That's what he said. He said they bought it because of the trees and because of the tree canopy, as well as, you know, parkland dedication. And to your point, Jim, it is, you know, there's that slough of sorts back there in the tree preservation area, but I do feel like that bench area that we kind of walked through
Right,
there
yeah. There's enough room.
is a pretty nice area, especially if, you know, if we did some kind of trail connecting into around the quarry. And
My biggest problem, totally, I mean, it's really not the land, it is the value difference. I mean, because I called the realtor and, you know, I kind of asked what the prices for land out is, and, you know, it can be well under 10 for prime land sometimes, depending on how big the piece of property is. So if I'm thinking, again, I was trying to look at it as individual, what would I do for the parks? And if I had a choice between a $20,000 or $30,000 piece of property and $109,000, I would take the 109. And so.
Tim, do you think that if we did ask for money in lieu, do you think that you could extend those lots, make those bigger lots, maybe get one extra lot out of the frontage that you have there, and recoup some of the cost of money in lieu that way? I mean, understanding that you have to sell the lots.
But
And do the infrastructure.
the easiest thing, I mean, would be,
Quinn, wasn't there also a water?
Well, I'm gonna let Tim finish, but there's a water, a manhole there, so there's an easement deep into one of those lots.
yeah, I mean, we could convert this frontage, what is the proposed park frontage, could probably be converted into a couple lots.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you do have, there's a manhole there, so I don't see it marked.
I mean, it's
Maybe
running
it's that.
right here, well.
There's this. Anyway.
Because I think we almost tripped over it when
Yeah, it's there.
It's there.
No problem.
Thank goodness the lid was on it.
So that might make it tricky to make it. We could probably get one lot out of that.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
And then maybe extending those other lots where the property runs behind it, you could stretch those out a little bit longer, make them a little bit deeper lots. I don't know if that changes the value of it much at all, but
I don't.
I like having a big backyard, but that's just.
I don't know, it does to me and you, but I don't know if, you know, these are gonna be 1,400 to 1,800 square foot homes, and a lot of the first time home buyers are looking at price point and what they're getting for that price, as opposed to how deep their backyard is or the trees in their backyard. And, you know, I might, I think you were kind of alluding to this, Connie, but I might go back and visit with the engineers a little bit on it and see if, you know, if there is a better location for some parkland, or if we can reconfigure things, because you know, I've got to go back through the preliminary plat process. So these lot lines mean nothing at this point, other
Just
than
the streets, right?
just the streets and the infrastructure. You know, we might have, if we reconfigure it, we might have a park that has obviously several water meters on it. You know, you can make all kinds of water fountains out there and have plenty of water. But that's the only real big challenge I see with doing something like that. So we might continue to brainstorm on it a little bit. I mean, I'm just representing the bank. I need to be a good steward of their funds and their objectives.
I didn't realize it was 6 years ago then, that this came through, and you know, our needs have kind of changed too. you know, as staff, you kind of feel bad, well, that's what we had requested then, but we'd have to realize that the development did not happen. I mean, otherwise we would have received that deed for that property, so, you know, to me, I think we're stuck at, you know, we need to look at this as a whole, a brand new project that is coming through.
Is there any, has anybody thought any more about, I mean, are we locked in as far as the quarry goes and what we can do with the quarry back there as far as that serving as the detention, like we discussed a little bit? I mean, I know we can do like a public easement, a public overlay easement with any trail that we develop. Is that one of our only options as far as using that particular piece as parkland?
Yeah, our city did, I mean, we do not, we call it kind of like double dipping. We don't take a detention pond because that is a requirement and then let you have that.
As the park.
Yeah, requirement as the park.
Double
also,
dipping
so.
in my favor.
I guess the same old true for tree preservation and parks, same thing, right?
Right.
Because I was wondering about that before and just didn't ask.
And, you know, we want to support these developments. It just really tickles me to have some developments going through and seeing things coming back alive in our community, so.
But I'd be curious just to, what the staff thinks about all this discussion. I mean, to me, the overriding factor, the other day when we were out there, that comparative value thing wasn't even a factor. I didn't even think about that. I would just thought we were comparing basically an equal value of land versus an equal value of money. And then I started thinking, you know, well, the value of the money is worth a lot more than the land, a whole lot more. To me, several times more. And then that made me start swinging the other way.
See, that's one thing that becomes complicated with our parkland
Yes.
dedication ordinance, because it makes the assumption that every piece of property throughout our city is worth a certain, what is it, 40,000?
Right now it's 40,000. We
right
take an
now.
average.
Right,
Yeah.
about
We
40,000.
take an
On all these
average.
projects, that's what it's come out to.
No matter
Right.
where, but the other side of that coin is when you do take that money, it buys the same price of equipment or whatever we do with that money. It costs the same no matter where you put it. So the value back to the neighborhood is the same. And, you know, if we did have different values in different quadrants and all, then it would be kind of unfair to people who live in that park district, that their land is valued less. So it's
Okay,
kind
there's
of
some reasoning there, yeah.
We
Because
looked
I
into
wondered,
that,
I
actually.
wondered why that formula wouldn't be more worded toward a certain amount of land or an equal amount of money compared to that land. Of course, that gets dicey because then you have to value the land.
It's cities.
So, but there's another reason that, you know, that I hadn't thought of.
There are cities that do their parkland dedication, they do go by the appraised value. But then you're talking about a lot of extra cost
Right,
and
right.
timing, a lot of time.
This is cleaner because you can come up with the value or the property amount.
You're on
Well, I don't know what all our options
Well,
are.
well, I mean, one of my questions, like, I mean, I have the same concerns, like, with the safety issues, you know, kind of that out of sight, out of mind, maybe hidden park, but is that really a parks board issue, or is that a parenting issue, knowing where your kids are, or, I mean, I'm trying not to say that sarcastically, you know, because, I mean, you guys give a recommendation, and we trust you, and we're not trying to question the judgment of the staff, but you know, maybe it's the same kind of question, like we were just saying, you know, lighting, we light the trails for safety, do we approve a hidden park for safety?
You know, Brent, that's exactly the reason why we have the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. We want our community to help us determine where our parks go and what criterias and which piece, help us pick out these pieces. As you see, we all have various ideas about it, and to get it all together that supports the best for our citizens and the most people that meet their needs. So all of these points you all are bringing out are great points to discuss.
Of course, the other issue is that, this was already approved and done this way, and now it's just kind of coming through again, which, because, if this was just a piece of property, we'd have a whole lot more leeway as far as, well, let's look over here, like, of course, there'll be a road there or electric lines there.
Well, when all said and done,
It's just a
there's no
mess.
more work for geofire, right? We're not talking a mowed area, a upkeep area, playground area. It's-
Right, it'd be very minimal. We're recommending to keep it as a natural area. So which our natural areas are very minimal, if any maintenance. There would be some maintenance with the way this park lays out, with those two lots that come to the road. Obviously, that area couldn't be in a natural state because it'd be between two lots. So we'd have to mow from the road to the wood line, or do some type of maintenance there. Unless the POA, they might enter an agreement with them that they would maintain that, I don't know. That'd be the only really area that would require us to maintain.
Is that something that is that common practice, or has that been done before, or a POA?
It has been done before. We actually even had one developer that gave us the property. They even developed the park and they maintained it for like 15, 20 years, and that was Mr. Lindsay.
Yeah,
So,
Prairie Street.
Yeah, Borderline Park. He dedicated that and gave extra land in back. So, I mean, it all just has to do with where we want it. I think more and more, we're getting towards naturalistic parklands. But yesterday, we didn't have the 200 acres for the original park either. So, with everything, and with this all said, I think we're coming closer and closer to a deed for another 10-year park master plan session to go on, so that we can work through these and what are our goals for the next 10 years. And that will be another point of discussion for 2012 when we move into that, but very important.
Would it make any sense to try to, instead of maybe having that wide frontage, or the wider, say it's a 2-lot frontage, I know there's the manhole in there, we maybe make that a little more narrow and try and jump across the street, or even jump across the middle street to provide some, but then you're left with a real long, narrow piece of property, but you can provide a little bit more connectivity, if there was a trail system built. Does that add anything? Because from a developer standpoint, I see that being as something that's more, then you get a future trail in there that could come all the way through about the middle of the subdivision, through meandering through the parks, the meandering through the larger trees over there on the far east side, and then jumping across that dead-end street and going in a loop around the quarry on there, I don't know if that, that gets a little bit more of the park more centrally located within our subdivision.
Something I was just talking with Billy about, on the northwest part of that whole corner, there's 4 lots there. Seeing something that was like a park that was on a corner, that was out kind of in the open, it would be more in conjunction with the quarry. You might be able to recover a lot. I don't know what you would do with that lower property down there that's just kind of secluded off by itself. But, from where the property goes up north and then over to the road, to utilize as much of that property as you can, that would be, something I would look at as, it's right there, it's right next to the quarry, just you have to cross the street, it's in the open, it's not gonna be behind something.
Low traffic.
Yeah, it's gonna be low traffic, it's a dead-end area, it's, that to me would be, and it's pretty easily seen from the neighborhood at large and the quarry and everything.
So you're suggesting taking that lot at the very
Well,
very top?
not even just the first lot, it's 4 lots right there, but basically from the tree quarry, the bottom border of the tree quarry, just coming all the way over, and have that northwest part be kind of the park area. I don't know if you guys can utilize any of that lower property on that bottom part that runs over the drainage ditch and has the manhole and stuff on it, but
So you're saying basically from the straight line there where the lot lines start to straighten, you know, where that northernmost straight line right there.
I basically take this amount of the property and create a park.
Oh, I was up in.
And then this part, I mean, I don't know if you can retain any lots or do anything back over in here behind these houses as far as houses goes, but to me, this property is a much more appealing. You use this conjunction of the property you've already put. Of course, you're having to go through 3 or 4 lots, but.
Or even if you just shifted them all down and made it into a reverse S and had that closer to your quarry where you're gonna have the plan to have trail.
Something
Probably
along those
easily
lines and then
pull
not
one
mess with
down
anything else.
and exchange it for one of those lots and then have a pass through where the easement is already and a corner lot that would give you more 2 entry points to the park.
Yeah, but I mean, then you're sticking
Same
a house
property.
on, you're kind of hiding. I mean, you know, I just soon have the property completely open, you know, on a corner as opposed to a house or anything in front of it. I mean, that would make it a lot more appealing and again.
I think you're asking for more than $100,000.
Right, and that's kind of the issue, and that's why I was talking about the lower, you know, trading that out for a lower portion of the property. I don't know if that's feasible or anything that y'all could create
Tim,
more lots.
How soon do you need to, are you all moving quickly on this, or could we delay it till the next Parks Board meeting and maybe come up with some options with you? I think Parks Board is throwing us some good ideas, and then just see, I mean, if you all would be willing for us to look here, or if you all say, no, we don't want it, we really don't want parkland here, then
I'd
that's
much
fine.
rather work to a compromise to make this thing happen, as opposed to just as presented say, no, we'll take money in lieu.
I think if it's
agree.
as presented, I would say I'd want money, but I didn't know it was an option to maybe look at some different areas. So if that is an option, then financially it makes sense for you, and, you know, for us, we'd have, in the park, we'd have more of an input
I'm all
of
for
where to
working.
strategically place that. We didn't
Right,
know on,
money in lieu,
when we met the
all
other day,
options
that
are
that was an
open.
option. We thought we were just committed to this piece.
I
So
would-
if
I
you're
would
willing
agree
to
with that.
explore that, then.
Definitely, and I'd say how much I
I would
appreciate
agree.
your willingness
Yeah, right.
to re-examine this, and I think we can come up with
To
something.
me, it seems like we have kind of 3 options. To take the land, obviously, to facilitate the development. We take money in lieu, obviously. We have all options open. If we really want to try to help this development, we can, there's a middle way, we can try to get it, maybe rearrange or change the features. I mean, I'd be real curious, I can't remember because we didn't really look at that over there. You know, if you do something really nice with the quarry, it'd be nice to be attached to the quarry. Of course, safety would be an issue. I know, I was thinking, I love the quarry, and I wouldn't want to fence it. You're gonna have to
Well, I'd
fence it.
love to
'cause
put a
it's
boat,
like-
a little dock out there on it, you know, but you just.
It's like a
can't.
swimming
I
pool
mean,
with steep
you can't
sides,
do
so you don't have,
that.
you don't have any choice about the
Quick
fence.
POA decide.
Wouldn't that be, it'd be cool to have a low traffic park next, right?
That might be too
Physically
many
next to a
lots, but
larger
whatever
park.
the equivalent would be, and then that ties into our existing trail system.
Well, see, that's what I thought.
That's not what he was talking
That's what I
about.
thought he was talking about, because he said
We could
northwest
west corner
corner.
those
Yeah.
lots.
That's what I was thinking.
That might be too many
Let staff
lots,
look at it.
you know, but that concept,
Jennifer,
then you're tying into your
Why
trail
don't you share your idea with them too, so we.
I thought that's what you were mentioning on the easement for the river, which is a future trail, is in the northwest corner.
She's looking at 23, 24, 25,
I'm
26.
Yeah,
suggesting
closest to the
this
river.
zone right here, and then tie into the quarry that everybody seems to be on board with, and then we already have our land easement to build the trail.
Yeah. Well, there's a plan for a trail to go.
The trail will go on the north side of that
On the
property.
north side
The White River
of the
Bridge.
property, but on the south side of the river.
That would
Well,
be a math question.
We have that
I
hasn't
think
been
I think
determined.
you're right,
It's
they would
on
have
the-
to be on the south side.
It's on the south side of Bayari, so we don't own the
Right.
north
Already
side
on the
of
south side of the river.
Bayari,
Right.
so it'd have to be on the south side.
I might have outlined too many lots there, but that concept of,
Well, and that's what, we were on the same page, that's where I was envisioning till he got up there and was on the other side, but that's, yeah,
Right,
that,
and-
I'm open to that idea.
Yeah,
It's
I
kind of
thought
the
a
same.
connection to the trail wasn't an option, that's why I was.
If you do something nice with the quarry, and we're in that, and if we're in that area,
Then it's a
of course,
destination.
that's a win-win, because it makes your development more attractive to have those amenities in there, so.
I think this is coming about through Tim's openness to say, let's try to make it work. So Tim, you know, I don't know if you'll want to allow, I would like to, for us to walk this property. I didn't actually
I didn't look
walk
at
that property. And
I'm
will
open to that
January be
idea.
too long for you to wait? Or we could have another special board meeting?
I was gonna say, I think in light of your willingness, if you needed something sooner, I'd be willing to.
I would
consider
love to have
special.
something sooner, simply because this is just the first step of, I've got preliminary plat, I've got a lot of meetings after
Yeah.
this to get this going again, and so, if you would be kind enough to accommodate
Yeah.
another special meeting, that'd be great.
Our next Parks Forum meeting, because first Monday falls on this January 2nd, our first meeting will actually be on January the 9th, since that is a holiday. That would be a long time to ask. So would you all like to determine a date now, or do you want us to just do
It's the way we usually do it.
Okay.
Or
We'll
email me.
pursue that for this week or next week?
Let's try it this week.
This
Motion
week?
to table then? Or are we gonna go ahead and set a date now? No. So then, at this point, it's a motion to table
Okay.
this discussion until we get a
Second.
chance to see that.
Did you all like the noon hour meeting, or would you want like an early morning? Or would you like a 4 o'clock late afternoon, so that we could see?
Just pick a warm day.
Noon or
A warm
morning?
day, okay.
Yeah, noon's good, or early afternoon. I go to work around 4 or something,
Oh, so 4 or later would be better.
or earlier.
Okay.
Oh, before 4, we gotta be finished by 4. Noon's good, noon's good.
Tuesday and Thursday next week, I'm free.
And the neighbor just, I was a little worried about that, or apprehensive about that neighbor meeting, and he was very excited about it, and
wow.
also very excited about any sort of trail around the quarry, and even touching his property right there, yeah, he was excited
Oh,
about that.
good. I thought maybe.
It was a great meeting, I mean, it really was, I was kind of braced for openness, what am I walking into
You
here?
weren't gonna be sitting out on the porch with the shotgun.
Did you get a feel as far as maybe if we did move it over there to closer to his property, as far as something trail?
I didn't, I mean, that wasn't, we didn't, I wasn't thinking in that direction really, but I know he was very excited about the trail, him and his wife, up the trail around the quarry. And I would think just by how open they were and how well that meeting went, I would think they'd be open to something else.
All right, I guess we've got a motion and a second to table this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, say no. Motion passes. All right, well, sorry, we weren't more definitive.
Well, that's all right, I appreciate it, not a problem, so I'll just hear from you, Connie, then.
Another round?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll go for another hike.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Can you tell me which day your brother's
Give it a day.
Thank you.
I'm very attracted.
All right, other business, we've got a little fire damage we can take a peek at.
I got pictures of it.
I guess it got pretty hot from the looks of those pictures. Maybe Connie can tell us about it. There's some melted metal and.
Very hot.
That is on the south side. The surface on that playground is shredded recycled tires, and someone had to just soak that galore. This happened Friday. I got the call at 1:30 a.m. on Saturday morning, but actually the fire happened about 10:30 or so that evening. It's being investigated by our fire marshal, so that's where we are right now. We hope to find who's ever done this. Estimated value is anywhere from 70, 80,000 or a little bit more to replace the playground like that. You know, they did us, we did have a concrete retaining area, so, and in that pile of pictures is also a picture of the new pavilion that we just placed out there that, you know, this is a neighborhood, I go over there quite a bit and just kind of go through it, and it seems like there's always kids there playing, you know. So we don't know if it's, you know, we don't have any idea who it is yet, but we certainly hope the neighborhood will come forward and help. help them determine. The city does have insurance, but still, it's hard to replace.
I don't know how long those pavilions have been up that we got from the co-op, but those are amazing. I didn't see them until a few months ago.
At Bryce Davis?
Yeah, those are great.
Aren't they?
And is the pond there part of the park?
Yes.
Sorry?
At Bryce Davis?
The pond, yeah, it's part of the park.
Yeah, I saw sod there and it was being watered last summer, so I thought that was us doing it. I wasn't sure.
Connie, was this surface the hard
No,
glued together?
it wasn't the poured in place
Loose.
nor the tiles, it was the loose shredded, recycled tire. That is
Rubber
ADA,
mulch.
yeah, rubber mulch. It is ADA acceptable.
Which adds water.
And interestingly enough, the contractor that's built the pavilion for us, obviously I told him about it, but it appears that the pavilion has been spared. But he said that the wooden mulch won't really burn like the rubber mulch. He said that
Probably holds too much moisture.
it'll burn a little, it'll start smoldering, it won't just go up in flames like that. But I mean, he doesn't, we don't know if the mulch is what caught the rest of it on fire, or, we don't know how it all
You can
came
see
about, but-
there is a stainless steel slide on it, and that was a replacement from a plastic slide that someone had previously had burnt. And we didn't replace it for a year, maybe, a good year, just kind of wait and see, and hey, let's don't fiddle with this playground anymore. And then it was about last year, around this time, that we replaced it with the stainless steel slide.
I don't
It's
know, you
hollow.
would think they'd have had to add something to get it that hot, melt that metal.
The aluminum post just totally melted
I
down.
think gas or something,
must
because
have, yeah.
just the mulch by itself, I wouldn't think we'd get that. Any other business? I'll read these upcoming city council items and events. January 18th through March 7th, the winter 2012 adult co-ed volleyball season. Registration began November 7th and continues through December 22nd. December 6th is the approval of a contract with Pickett Construction for the construction of Walker Park baseball complex improvements that we talked about. An approval of a contract between the City of Fayetteville and the Northwest Arkansas Economic Development District to provide public recreation services for the senior citizens of Fayetteville for 2012. Also, approval of a contract between the City of Fayetteville and the Fayetteville Boys and Girls Club to provide public recreation services for youth and citizens of Fayetteville for 2012. December 17th, the community Christmas event will be held at Yvonne Richardson Center from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The event is for ages 0 to 18 years.
If anybody wants to volunteer for that, you can call it, me, we can always get volunteers to hand out pizza or to hand out gifts.
My son would love to do that.
It's a good experience for children, I mean, if they're old enough to
Volunteer,
understand.
it has to be
Yeah.
18, or?
No, I mean, they can volunteer, I mean, I probably wouldn't have someone under 10, just because
Right.
they wouldn't really
Easy.
grasp why they're not getting any
I'll
presents.
try to get you.
But above that, it's a valuable experience.
Anybody want to make a motion for adjournment?
Yeah, that's, motion.
Just have to help us
Second.
with that.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Well, meeting adjourned.
Yeah.